And now we are in Kungahälla in Sweden, and we are going to show you a documentary about Kungahälla from the Bronze Age to Viking Age. Not so much Bronze Age.
No.
More Viking Age, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not starting here, but we are in
Ragnhildsholmen, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And well, some of the videos we have the kids with us, and other times we're just telling some sagas from Edda.
Yep.
And
lots of stories and a little bit of history also.
a big part of history.
Yeah, big part.
And some artifacts too. We are showing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Artifacts.
So now we're starting the documentary.
And we hope you will enjoy it really much.
So follow us. As you all know and heard of, Ragnarök is the story from the Sagas in Edda. But still they have found proof that it's been for real. And well, in Edda they mention 245, but in reality what you can find in historical artifacts and stuff like that is from 536 AD, and they found it was a natural catastrophical. There was something happening in the nature. There was a volcano Kastello on Iceland that had a big event for the whole world to see. All the way from Greenland to China, you have found proof that it was ashes through the skies. The people in China couldn't read that year at all on the stores. And the people in Sweden, well, they didn't get any sun at all. It was just totally darkness. And there were 3 winters without any sun at all. And when the sun disappears, you can't find food. And if you don't have any food, well then people start to die. And the first ash winter, there were no grass, and that meant no animals. And when the animals started dying, well, people started to die. And half the people in the Scandinavian landscapes, well, they died. At least half of them. And well, they say Ragnarök happened and in the future it will come back. Well, I don't know when. The other and the Edda doesn't say when. Still, if you think about it, all the Edda is from the real Ragnarök, and there have been proof of some rock carvings. And on this rock carving, it says that it happened something terrible 9 generations ago, and that stone was raised in an area in Vätern in Sweden in the year 800 AD. And if you think about it, the people didn't live that long, like 100 years and stuff like that. So it's probably at the right time, 536. And well, we will have to see, because when Ragnarök happens, the stars will fall from the sky, the sea level will rise, everything becomes death. Everyone dies. So in the sagas it mentions that a few people survived, and if you read the story you can see almost directly where Adam and Eve from the Christianity came from. So, well, let's begin in the Bronze Age after this one, because in the sagas about Kungahälla, they are mentioned in the year 650 AD, but still it doesn't say Kungahälla or Kungälv or Ytterby or anything at all like that. It's just a place, how they mention it, how they learn about the place. So that's why they are telling it's from 650, but we are starting back in the Bronze Age. Come on!
Here we are at Västra Porten, Stora Smällen, in English Big Bang. That name come from some happenings at Bohus festning, and we'll come back to that one later. Here are some graves, a lot of them, from 500 before Christ to 1080 after Christ. So this has been used way before the Viking Age and during the Viking Age. Somewhere in this area they had found a collection with 50 small houses dated from 50 before Christ to 600 after Christ. One of them was a long house which was 50 times 10 meters, so it's quite a big long house. Very big. There is also a stone with some boat and symbols on it. Thunder had hit the ground and opened up the earth, so they have found a collection of artifacts or relics. Among two rings dated at the year 0, found on a copper plate. There have also been bear claws, furs, symbolic artifacts. So thunder really helps.
Well, we have to show you some artifacts about Västra Porten and Big Bang. So let's follow into the mysterious world of artifacts. So?
One of the great characters we have about Kungahälla is Sigrid Storråda, or Sigrid the Haughty. She was a proud Swedish queen, actually the first known queen in Sweden. She was a ruler of Västgötaland and often were here in Kungahälla, where she probably had one of her seats. Many lesser kings tried to propose to her. Two were so persistent that she let them be burned alive, actually. This was a Russian prince and Olaf the Holy's father. She was also mother of three coming kings. Olaf Skötkonung, who was king in Sweden from 955 until 1022. She was also mother to the Danish king Harald, who was king from 1014 to 1018, and mother also to Knut the Great, who was a famous Danish king from 1018 to 1036. One of those who proposed to her was Olaf Tryggvason. She accepted, actually, but she didn't want to be baptized. And Olaf Tryggvason was not so happy about that and said that he can't marry a hound heathen, and slapped her really hard, really slapped her in the face. She got so offended that it later led to a feud, and she convinced 2 kings and a jarl to form an alliance to go to war with King Olaf, and that war is Slaget vid Svolder, one of the more famous battles there that have been. Since Olaf had made many enemies during his crusade against the heathens, with threats, torture and executions, it wasn't that hard to form an alliance against him actually. And then we come to the Slaget vid Svolder, or the Svolder Battle. Some historians says that it might have been actually out by Rivö, outside Gothenburg. Some say also Östersjön. So where the Slaget vid Svolder actually have been is a mystery in some ways. Slaget vid Svolder also had a meaning because for long the Danish had trying to have control of Norway, and at the same time the spreading of Christianity in Scandinavia. King Olaf sailed home from Wendland and was attacked by the alliance with Erik Håkansson, Norwegian Jarl, Olof Skötkonung, King of Sweden, and Sven Tveskägg, the King of Denmark. Olaf only had 11 ships against the enemies. Historians say between 70 to 139 ships, depending on which saga you read actually. King Olaf's ships were taken one by one until only Ormen Lange was the one left.
And that's the ship of Olaf.
That's the ship of Olaf, yeah. When it was only the ship Ormen Lange with Olaf left, there is actually a tale in Heimskringla, chapter 108. It's written: to save the day for Olaf and kill Erik, the Einar Tambarskjalve tried to shoot Erik with his bow and arrow. The Jarl said to shoot the long man in defense. The arrow hit Einar's bow in the moment that he tightened the bow for the 3rd time. His bow broke in 2 with a large bang. Olaf, the king, said, "What was that sound?" Einar answered, "That was the sound of Norway slipping out of your hand, old king." Erik then jumped aboard to the ship, and King Olaf was nowhere to be found. Some says he jumped the ship, and tales even says that he was seen in the Holy Land later, but there is no evidence for that.
We all love stories. So I'm going to tell you a story from Edda. It was the King of Svea, and it was Olaf the Holy. And they had a dispute on Hisingen, who is going to own this part of the landscape. Well, they couldn't decide, they disagreed, so they were thinking, well, let's throw dice about this. And the one with the highest wins, of course. So Svea, he throws his dice and got 12. And he was thinking, oh, I win this one. And King Holy Olaf, well, he threw his dice and it also got one. They have to do it again. So Svea, well, it went 12 once again. And then Holy Olaf, well, he was holy. So he threw his dice and it cracked in half. So we got 1 6 and 1 6 and 1 1. So he won with 13. All of Hisingen was his to own. And the one thing you can wonder about is how he cracked a dice made out of bone. It's really fantastic, it's a really amazing story, but I don't really think it's true.
Kungahälla from year 800 around that and forward. From the year 800 there aren't that many findings. Both because the royal halls and the city itself have been moved several times. All this moves with the city around may explain the contradictions in the different sagas and stories. Also, that's why it's so very hard to find evidence about exactly where. The archeological places they have dug and tried to find things in Kungahälla, they have found nothing at all. But in Ytterby, as mentioned, they have found very much and quite fascinating. Kungahälla has also been important for many kings, including one we haven't mentioned or taken much about this time, Harald Hårfager, for example. So Kungahälla have been a residence and an important place for very many kings during the time. Also, it has been the southernmost city of Norway and a very important place for them, both for maintaining their power and for trading.
Det är bra.
I want to read a story about Anund Jakob Kolbränna and his participation in the battle with Helge Å. Anund Jakob, born, they believe, 1007 or 1009, and he died at 1050. He was the son of Olof Skötkonung and was named only Jakob. But when he was about to be elected king, the people didn't like a Christian sounding name. They want a more Swedish sounding name, so to say. So he had to take the name Anund, and it's by the name Anund he's known in the stories. That was around the year 1020 when he was about to be king. Even the coins he had made in Sigtuna was imprinted with the name Anund. There are very few sagas about his contributions as a king and a ruler. Two things that stand out, that's his name Kolbränna, because he had men's house burned down to ashes and coal when striving for law and order in quite harsh fashion, according to some sagas. Anund's foreign policy was to preserve balance in Scandinavia. With that, he also switched sides several times. First, he supported Norway's king and his brother-in-law Olav Haraldsson, and Magnus the Good against Denmark's king Knut the Great, and Knut the Great's sons also. Later he supported the Danish Sven Estridsson against the Norwegian Magnus the Good. So Magnus the Good had him both as an ally and as an opponent. The most famous event during his time was the battle by Helge Å in 1026. Since Anund and Olav became brother-in-law, there was peace between Norway and Sweden. Knut the Great tried several times to bribe Anund with both great and magnificent gifts and friendships. In a meeting in Kungahälla, the Norway's and Swedish alliance was concluded. Let's get back to the battle now. In 1026, the two allied fleets gathered after Olav has raided Sjælland and Anund has, in real Viking style, raided eastern parts of Skåne. In total, they had 420 ships, and Knut the Great was in England by that time. He got word of what was happening in his lands, but quickly gathered a fleet to meet his enemies. When word traveled to Anund and Olav about the size of Knut the Great's fleet, they decided to avoid them and sailed back to Sweden. They passed Skåne, which was raided again, and came no further than Helge Å, where they set up a defense in order to meet Knut the Great's fleet. The different sources for this battle differs a bit. Some say that Anund had his army by foot, but most sources said that he had his fleet. It seems that Knut's fleet had some sort of accident and many of his men drowned. Still, it was the allied fleet that withdrew from the battle last and are proclaimed winners. The great losses by the Danes would make the battle a tie, so to say, but according to the customs, the one who leaves last are the winner. During the following years, it was Knut who was more fortunate. Norwegian nobles, loyal to Knut, chased Olav the Holy away from Norway in 1028, and in the year 1030, Knut the Great also had coins made in Sigtuna with the inscription Knut Rex SW. That means Knut, King of Sweden.
Are you stuck?
What have I done?
I don't know. We have to go to the museum, come on. And now we are at the museum in Lödöse, and Lars found something he likes. So he's gonna try it on. A helmet.
A great helmet, actually.
How is it talking in the helmet?
It's quite heavy. And yeah, I don't like the sound ringing in my ears.
Yes, it's an echo.
Yeah. And it falling down. I think I need a hat, under.
Really nice.
I want one of these.
Here we have a battle axe from the Viking age, around 800 till 1200. It's a nice one.
And also some sword here, very well preserved. Probably did the owner very good favors in the battle.
1400 of the one highest. And the below is
Middle Age.
yes, and this one is from 1200. And at lower side you see a battle club.
Yeah, from 1200 to 1300. That one is.
And then we have the spear. And the first one is from Middle Age, and the second one is also from the Middle Age.
Yeah, 1200 to 1300.
Yeah. And we have this one for horseback riding that you had on your shoe.
Spurs.
Yeah.
Here we have also the hat wearing beloved underneath the helmet I just showed you.
It's in leather,
Yeah.
so it's a bit more comfortable than just iron.
Yeah, probably a good idea at the winter.
Yeah. And here we have horsebow. They use this as ice skating in the winter. And they put it on their shoes. So they made a few holes in them to wrap around the shoe. And here is one leather hat from 1150 till 1170. And a bit below that there's shoes from the Middle Age. It's a big change from the Viking Age to the Middle Age in shoes and how they made them. But really interesting in clothing and design. Huh?
Here we have some a portal stone, carved, decorated, used in building the castles. We also have here an axe from the Middle Age, very well preserved. It looks like it could have been a really sharp one. Further down at the bottom here we have tiles, glazed tiles used at St. Olaf Church at the 1200s. They really had a thing for decorating their precious places. Also we have some nails. Here is a sample of how nails could look like at the Middle Age. It seems as because they are so well preserved, they must have been a very good quality.
This is how they made fabric in the Viking Age. They were weaving. And we're not going into that so much, but something to mention is this was only for women. And they said it had magical powers for women to sewing. So it was just for women. And they even made the boats' sails like this, and it took them many years to do this. Many of them. And if we're looking at this place, we are taking some textiles to mention. And at the lowest point, you see some fabric from 1100. And if you're looking a bit over at 11, then you see one classic texture in the fabric that we even use today on our clothing. It's waving
Weaving technique?
Yes.
Yeah, still used?
Yes, they do. And if we are looking at this corner, now we are leaving the textile. It's an axe If you see on the axe side, you see there's a lot of runes. If you see, it's a lot of runes all over the place. And this is from 1200, so it's really interesting. They say that the Viking age was over in 1200.
This particular inscription says, "Peter owns me, Johannes carved me."
Yes. And here we have the whale sword. This was also made when you were making fabric. And it's from 1100. At the lower point you can see how the fabric changed until the Middle Age, and this one was probably to make a strong fabric, maybe to sit on,
Yeah.
or have a carpet, because they in the Middle Age they were having carpets all over the walls because it was too cold in the castles to live in. And now we are going to the next one. This one. And here Lars have found something.
Yeah, I think it's very funny, the lowest part here. That's also a rib, as we mentioned before, with the rune inscription Eva or Eve. It's from 1250s to 1100 something. But this must be a very funny joke, because Eve was not something you baptized your name to, that one. So maybe the inscriptionists, they were making fun of the creation story from the Bible. Quite funny, I think.
Yes, and if you go all the way up, then you see bergskristall. I don't know the name in English. And it's from the Middle Age. And it's funny to see, because in Sweden we had a lot of those stones trading as Vikings. And they are so clear, crystal clear, and so old. That's fascinating.
Really fascinating, yeah, I agree. Here we have baptizing, what's it called in English? Baptizing water unit, maybe? It's from late Viking age, when they were Christian. It's found here in Lödöse. Here we also have some baptizing foot with rune inscriptions. This runes here says Torkel Nektergal carved these runes in Olof's church. So all the way to the 1200s, runes were still used. A real legacy from the Viking area. Here we also have a Madonna, an oak figurine from the Middle Age. Here we have a skeleton finding from St. Peter's Church, dated to the late 1100, early 1200. This was a young woman. She lived here in Lödöse, but was grown somewhere else in Västra. Her skeleton shows that she had been around 150 centimeters long. She was quite young when she passed away. She had caries in 4 teeth, a lost tooth, and plenty of tooth stone. So her mouth health was not in a very good condition. Here we have some rune sticks. with magical inscription from 1100, around year 1100. Yeah, the inscriptions are in this setting combined with magical and as a guard or shield for bad things. This one mentions giant trolls, also some god inscriptions here, and it seems that this has been a protection amulet for the bearer. It's quite simple made, so that's why they think it's most possible that it was a protection amulet, so to say. Also, they enjoyed carving fetishes and that kind of wooden figures, also mentioned here at the. So runes have lots of meanings, not only for writing down what's happened and such, but also for the magical and protection kind of way. Around 1101, historians believe, there was the Three King meeting. The Three King meeting was with Magnus Barefoot, Inge the Older, and Erik Ejegood. This was to gather peace between the three countries, Norway, Sweden and Denmark. Inge the Older's daughter, Margareta, was married off to Erik Ejegood. She then got the name Margareta Fredkulla because she was the peace offering, so to say. It was believed that it was at the Götaälv estuary. So sagas don't tell much about it, but it was a really important happening. We'll see more stuff. Come on! Now we are at Kastello Cloister. Here the groundstones still stand. This was built a bit just before the year 1160. It was an Augustiner cloister. They also had a farmhouse here that was primarily a place where they collected taxes. Sigurd Jorslafar, Jerusalem traveler. He's mentioned here in Einstein and Olaf's saga Heimskringla. Sigurd returned here with a very valuable gift from the King of Jerusalem, a piece of Jesus Christ cross. So it was one of the most valuable relics there was. In the 1120 they started to building a castle here, and in 1127 a church where the piece of the cross was kept. At the year of 1135 the Venderna attacked. Venderna is a collection of different Slavic groups. They were led by King Retibur. On Lårsmässodagen, Vendernas King Retibur had, depending on which saga you read, 250, 550 small weasels. Each weasel had 44 men and 2 horses on them. Some of them, when they attacked, come riding over the Brattås. When they came to the docks, there were 9 ships, seafaring trade ships, that stood up and defended the city. They couldn't defend for too long, so they have to flee up to the Kastello. But the vendors lost some men. Some of the warriors died in that battle. But the city folks, they fled up to the castle, while the vendors plundered and set fire on the docks and the ships there. The whole vendors' army then attacked the castle and gathered in front. King Retibur offered them free passage. They could take their weapons, gold, everything with them, and go away in peace. But the city folks, those who lived here, they screamed, "No way, we are defending what's ours." So there a great battle started. The battle itself, the vendors were in very large numbers and progressed far. And in a place a bit from here, there was a gathering of farmers, and one of the city folks ran up to the farmers, to the gathering there, and told what was happening. Solberger was the place they were gathered, and there was a very brave farmer named Olve Stormun. He gathered a shield, a helmet, and a very large axe and run to help the city's defenses. Some farmers followed him because they thought, no, we can't fight against trained soldiers. No way. But Oliver Stormun, he thought he could, and he ran and gets surrounded by 8 vendors. He took his axe and swung. When he swung backwards, he hit one of the vendors, who fell dead, and when he launched his throw with the axe, he killed another one. 6 of them left. Then the fight 6 against 1 started, and he killed 2 more, but he got heavily wounded himself. And the 4 remaining vendors, they ran away, scared like small rabbits, and came to a very muddy place where they got stuck. So Olive Stormund, he jumped in and killed 2 of those who were stuck. So only 2 of the 8 actually got away from that brave farmer. The more frightened farmers that have followed Olve, they helped him out of the mud and get him back up where he could be bandaged and his wounds were healed, and he was treated like a hero among his own after that. But back to the fight. The vendors, they got back, recollected themselves, and launched a new attack. There was one of the vendors that ran to the Castell gate. The defenders tried to shoot him, throw rocks at him, anything. And even though the man didn't have a shield, no one was able to hurt him. Not a single scratch, so the saga says. They believed he was a sorcerer or something like that. So then the priest from the chapel, Andreas, he took some sacred fire and blessed it. He took some straws, put on an arrow and lit it with the sacred fire and gave that arrow to Åsmund. Åsmund, he shot the magician, the sorcerer, and the sorcerer fell dead. Retibur again offered free passage, peace. They could take their weapons, gold, anything, and walk away as free people. This time, the defenders, they accepted. That was not a smart move, because the vendors then, the wounded ones, men, women, children, they killed and kept some to be slaves. After that, the Kastello was plundered, set on fire, and even the church was set on fire. But the church, the fire went out 2 times. So they did the only option they had left. They chopped down the whole church. And here we have the ruins. After that, it was said that Kungahälla never could rise to its former glory. But other story says they actually did. They were a great place and an important piece of the Norwegian history.
Now we are going to show some artifacts from Kastellogården. Yeah.
We are have the view over an area called Jordfallet. In the year 1150 there was a great landslide, the biggest landslide that ever happened in Sweden. About 37 hectare rushed out to the Göta Älv. Back at that time the sea level was 3 meters higher than today, and this part was a bay and the river behind that. Back then the river was 500 meters wide, and it was so calm that you could walk all the way up to Trollhättan, very many kilometers upstreams.
And now we are back in
Ragnhildsholmen.
Yeah. And now we are going to show you some history from this place from 1200 and forward.
Yeah.
And if you see the place around, this is the remains of a big part of the history.
Very big part. This was really important back in those days.
So this place, many of the stones are taken away because they put it in the new building, Bohus fästning, in the new Kungahälla. And some parts of the stones they made fence to their horses and cows and sheep and stuff like that. But as you see, they haven't grayed out that much history yet. That they made many founds in 1800. And yeah, some stories, Lars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we want to hear about? Maybe some kings and queens in the castle?
Indeed.
Yep. We have some stories here. Here, Norway's King Håkon Håkansson, or Håkon the Elder, who let build this castle, spent a lot of his time here in Kungahälla and Ragnhildsholmen. He lived in the castle when he was here. Håkon was married to Queen Margrethe Skulesdatter, and together they had a son, Håkon the Young. In one saga, it's written that Håkon the Young lived in the castle in the spring of 1257.
Wow.
He hunts with hawk and dog. Unfortunately, he got sick that spring and had to travel home. In the 1270s, the Swedish king Valdemar Birgersson had a feud with his brothers Erik and Magnus. Valdemar fled to Norway with his queen Sophia and lived with their entire court here in this castle. In the 1280s, this castle became a sanctuary for outlawed Danish nobles who took part in the murder of the Danish king Erik Klipping. Around the 1310s, Ragnhildsholmen was abandoned and replaced with Bohus fästning. Lot of Ragnhildsholmen stones around here was relocated in the building of the new fortress. So lot of this stone went to build Bohus fästning.
We have the entrance to the fort. And follow me. In that place we have Kungahälla, the new Kungahälla. In that area over there we have Viking graves, bigger graves, and some of them we had on another video in the documentary.
After King Sigrid Jostlafar's death in the 1930s, the Norwegian crown was in constant fighting for. Bohusland had something like civil war. The pretender to the throne, Håkon Herdebred, threatened Kungahälla. He threatened Kungahälla especially in the year 1158 and 1159. So it was unrest and strife until the start of the 13th century. Håkon Håkansson, the elder, government had a permanent administration here in Bohusland. Everything from Svinesund, that's where the Norwegian and Swedish border are today, and all the way south there was seen as one unit. On Håkon's order, the ring wall castle Nyklaborg, where we stand right now, was built here on Ragnhildsholmen in the 1250s. Really great story about all this fascinating place.
I agree very, very much.
Yeah. Let's show you some other stuff. Come on.
Mostly the Vikings were farmers. They were not raiders they were farmers.
And we have a little farmer here.
Indeed we do.
Farmers and explorers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
worldwide.
Now we are at Ragnhildsholmen, also called Nyklaborg, and this was built in the 1250s. This castle was built to defend Kungahälla. Here lived Norwegian, Swedish and Danish kings and queens, nobles, soldiers and servants. But as soon as the beginning of the 14th century, it had played its part in the history, so to say. This was also the border region for the three kingdoms, Norway, Sweden and Denmark. And the castle size shows how important Kungahälla was in Norway for that time being. Up to the 16th century, Ragnhilds River was an open watercourse. Nyklaborg functioned both as a residence and military headquarters. You can see the fightings. In order to keep supervision and defend the borders, kings of the Middle Age traveled through their kingdoms. On the travels, they needed housing, and when the king was away, the castle served as a mark for his power in the area. Look at them training. Now we want to show you the Bohus castle. We had to stand a bit on the side because of the sun, and the camera had some problems getting the light and filming correctly. This was built in 1308 because of some siege that was at the Ragnhildsholmen. So the besieging side built this one in wood to the beginning. It was a wooden building. To both have as the besieging dragged on and it was closing into winter, they needed some warming and a place to feed their troops. So this fortress was starting to build. It also cut off the connections from Ragnhildsholmen that they besieged, so they couldn't go and ask for help and all that kind of things. So their communication was almost totally cut off. Later they started building with stones, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it has been rebuilt and built further on so many times that they cannot say the exact times the castle was finished. Only that it was started in 1308. Really magnificent and wonderful craftsmanship. Those masonries really knew what they was doing.
Blanka of Namur, born around 1320 and died in 1363, was a countess of what is now a province in Belgium and became Swedish, Norwegian and Scandinavian queen from 1335 through her marriage to King Magnus Eriksson. Blanka was born at the fortress of Namur in present-day Belgium as the daughter of Count Jean Dampierre of Namur and his Countess Marie of Artois, and granddaughter of King Louis VIII of France. Contemporary sources indicate that Queen Blanka was both beautiful and wise, but there are no images of her that are known for certain to represent her. The children's song Rida Rida Ranka, Hästen heter Blanka, is about Queen Blanka and was written at the end of the 19th century by Hans Henrik Hallebeck. And that is a very famous Swedish children's song. Magnus Eriksson, son of Duke Erik Magnusson and Ingeborg, the Norwegian King Håkon Magnusson's daughter, was born in April or May 1316. Only 3 years old after the death of his grandfather Håkon, he was hailed as King of Norway and was elected on July the 8th of the same year. Since a German treaty had been established, he also ruled Sweden. The so-called Freedom Letter, which was called Sweden's Magna Carta, was drawn up in a connection with his election as King of Sweden in 1319. At first, his mother, Duchess Ingeborg, had a predominant influence on the government of both kingdoms. Ingeborg had been present in Oslo when the Union Treaty was concluded, and in the treaty she is mentioned in a way that could be interpreted as giving her certain powers.
The story about Queen Blanca and King Magnus Eriksson's wedding here at Bohus Castle, or at least it's believed to be here at Bohus Castle. When Magnus was 18 years old in 1334, he went as a bachelor to the county of Namur in present-day Belgium. There he proposed to the 16-year-old Blanche, or Blanca, as the Swedish story says, daughter of Jean of Namur and Marie de Artois. In the autumn of 1335, Blanca left the Namur and came to the Nordic countries. Bohus Castle was a modern and stately castle that hosted royal weddings with guests from all over the Nordics and Flanders. Among the guests, apart from Blanca and Magnus' families, were bishops, dignitaries from Norway and Sweden, and probably Danish royals and North German princes. The wedding party was a magnificent and colorful event, and Blanca, who was seen as both clever and beautiful, made a success as a delightful bride. As customary back then, the procedure took 3 days. First day was the wedding party with the fancy dinner and all that kind of things. And the second day was the bridal race. That was when the couple would be presented to the people, and also to show that both sides of the family was united in this wedding. The third day was the day for the morning gifts. Blanca received Lödöse Castle with its surrounding and Ragnhildsholmen Castle in Gothenburg, among others, and also Tönsberghus, some of the Sagas says. In the second deed of gift in 1353, she also received Bohus Castle and Marstrand with Älvsyssel, except Orust. Bohus Castle, so she received this one also. She must have been very high thought of and respected. And now the sun is working in our favor for once. This is a magnificent view over the so incredibly beautiful Bohus Castle. location here on Kungahälla and the craftsmanship with all these walls and stones made this one of the Nordics' most strong fortresses. It have been attacked 14 times and it still stands. Rather marvelous.